Hey, so I noticed a lot of people checking the quality of their audio files using spek. For example, here's a WAV file. This is a true lossless file I got straight off a CD. And comparing a 128 kilobits MP3 file, kilobits per second, you can see it gets cut off. The frequency spectrum just kind of shelves, per se, at 16 kilohertz. Whereas the WAV file goes all the way up. However, this method really isn't sufficient to tell if a file is actually lossless or not. For example, here's a copy of the song I bought on iTunes. And it is about 273 kilobits per second. But it appears to go all the way up. So just using spek alone like this isn't really enough to tell the difference. Maybe you could tell a little bit from the way it gets a bit thin above 20 kilohertz. But, so there's really two problems here. One, we're zoomed way too far out. This is like it's almost a 7-minute song. But the artifacts that are introduced by lossy formats like MP3 and M4A, they occur on a much smaller time scale. So we really need to zoom in to a smaller chunk, like 7 or 10 seconds. Another problem is we're only looking at the center channel right now. Right, so this is a stereo audio file. You've got left and right audio. Or you could look at it as center and sides. We are only looking at the center channel, but the sides are what get hit really hard during compression. So we want to look at the sides, and we want to zoom in a lot more. So let's take another look using another piece of software I just found recently called Sonic Visualizer. And also let's do a bit of processing first. This isn't the most user-friendly. I'm sure there's a way to do this directly in Sonic Visualizer, but someone will have to let me know in the comments. Basically what I'm going to do is split these files up into mids and sides. So yeah, the left channel is now going to be the center, and the right channel is now going to be the sides. So let's go ahead and do that. Actually, I take that back. Let's give these a name so they're a bit easier to differentiate once they both have the same file extension. Okay. So here is our CD, here's our iTunes. And let's take a closer look here. So this is the CD, this is the center, and here's the sides. Center, sides. So looks pretty good. Looks like a CD to me. Let's take a look at iTunes though. So here's iTunes. And we immediately see a lot of differences here. If you can, I would go full screen. Try and view this on a big screen. Try and view. You might not be able to pick all this out on your phone. Take a look here. See how there's all these chunks that have appeared? They're not there on the CD. Oh, I forgot. There's like a second or two difference in when the song starts. So. Doesn't line up perfectly, but you can see there's all these chunks on the iTunes version. You can even see this in the center channel, but it's a horror show on the sides. You can see it's just gutted. There's all these. It's basically pixelation in the time frequency domain, and it's not present at all in the true lossless version. And a couple other interesting things to note. One interesting thing is, just because you see chunks isn't a surefire indicator that it's a lossy file. For example, some people use lossy samples in their songs. For example, this hi-hat here, we can go ahead and listen to it. He used a lossy sample for that hi-hat. You can see these chunks here. I don't know what this is, MP3, OGG, something like that. It's clearly lossy, but you can see those chunks are exactly the same every single time that hi-hat hits. So clearly this, he's using a lossy sample. If these chunks were like different every time it hit, then that would be kind of suspicious. Well, I mean, he could be using a loop, and the whole loop is compressed. Anyway, moving on. Just watch out for people using lossy samples in their songs. That's a thing. It can still be a lossless song. They just use a couple lossy samples. Another interesting thing to note, when there's something really loud in the center channel, but the side channels are quiet, then that's when the compression really kicks in. This is pretty funny. Let's take a look over here. So this is the CD. Yes, this is the CD, and here's the center channel, and we see there's a bit of a break. Here, let's listen to this. This giant pad kicks in the center, but the sides remain pretty quiet. Not a lot going on besides a bit of a drony pad thing. Now, but let's compare the CD to iTunes. Look at that, right? The sides just get destroyed because they know you can't hear it. If there's something really loud in the center, you're not going to hear if there's something quiet in the sides. So they gut it out to save space. And you can see there's even chunking like way down here. This is like 300, 100 hertz, like 30, 60 hertz. And you can see chunking even all the way down there, just because the center is so loud. That's pretty interesting. And you can see this all over the place. I don't know if I can find a good example here in this track. But for example, if there's like sibilance in the vocals, like when there's an S sound, actually we'll see an example of that later. So here, let's actually take a look. So this is a track that's been floating around. It's a wave file of Voltage by Skrillex. And if we look at it in spec, looks pretty good, right? It sounds pretty good too. But let's take a look at it in Sonic Visualizer. Really, the software doesn't matter. What matters is that you look at the mids and sides separately and you zoom in a bit. So here we go. Here's our file. Yeah, what does that look like to you guys? It doesn't look good. I mean, knowing the history of, Skrillex has a tendency to toss out lossy files from iTunes, so this is very unlikely to be a real WAV file, if you ask me. This I'd say the odds are really, really high this came out of iTunes. Yeah, just look at that. Look at all this. What I was saying earlier about the sibilance, let's take a look at that. It's pretty interesting. Here we go. Yeah, over here. So let's take a listen to, here's the center channel. Let's take a listen to this. So you see how the center is really loud up here around like 10 kilohertz on those S's. This. And you can see how when those hit, the side channels just get gutted. They're just annihilated. This, I'm not 100, I think this is a bit of clipping. I think if you look at the original file, there's some like kind of inner sample peak stuff going on. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. There's some sort of clipping going on here. But yeah, in general, you see it just gets gutted. So that's another thing to look out for. Yeah, there you go. Feel free to let me know if I made any mistakes or said anything wrong. Let me know if there's a more efficient workflow for this. I'd like to be able to just pop a file straight into Sonic Visualizer and not have to split up the mids and sides into separate channels first. Let me know if there's anything else related to this that you find interesting that you think I'd like to know. Yeah, thanks.